everybody, Blair from Watches on Broadway here in Newmarket, Auckland, New Zealand. Now I'm just here to show you a little bit about this machine we used for polishing clock pivots called the Rollimat. If you come in closer, we'll show you the machine. This is it here. This is the benchtop version. Traditional clock pivot polishers tend to be mounted in the lathe, which meant you either had to waste time setting it up or you had to have a dedicated lathe. I've used that type made by Virgin. I never really found it ideal. So several years ago I bought this, and I'm actually the Australasian supplier for these. So I buy them from Austria and supply them to New Zealand and Australia. You can find more about it on my website, www.watchesonbroadway.co.nz. But in the meantime I'm going to give you a fairly close-up demonstration of how it works. First things first, let's just have a look at how it actually, at other various components. So we've got this vertical slide, and we've got a lock here, so we've got an extension for the vertical slide. And then it works, there's a motor inside driving this belt which turns this drum arrangement here, spins this wheel backwards against the jacko drum. To give you a better understanding of that, I'm just going to take it apart a little and show you how it actually goes together, and so you can see what's happening. So I'm going to spin this, let's take this screw out, not screw, nut, lift that out, and I'm going to release that, wind that all the way in, and there's our polishing wheel. If you can get a close-up on there, this is made of Whittier, which my understanding is that's another word for tungsten carbide, but I could be mistaken. Either way, it's very, very hard, and it's got an angled grain on it. There's two grades of wheel available. This one's the coarser of the two, which, to be honest, is the one I use 99% of the time. And then it's got the drive gear down there. So that just drops down inside here, and lock nut holds it in place. It's not bad form to take this out periodically for cleaning. Now there are two main adjustments on it. No, before we go there, I was going to show you the jacko drum. So there's a knurled hand nut underneath. If we lift that out, we can take out the jacko drum. So that's shimmed for perfect height, and we've got a little spring-loaded pin there for locating it in these holes, so it locates very, very accurately. So I'm just going to put that back in, put the nut back on underneath. Okay, so that, you have the little slide there, spring-loaded, we can adjust that. And then we've got these two wheels here. Now this wheel is basically just a screw for moving in and out this piece here, which is hinged right back here. And that's the carrier for the Whittier wheel. And then as you can see, it's got spring tension here, and this wheel here has a 1, 2, 3 position spring tension setting for that there. You can then choose which spring tension you want, and then you can then fine tune it with the wheel a little bit, as I will show you. I'm going to start on the middle setting. For most pivots that's probably ideal. And the last piece is the swarf collector and oil pad. I'm going to put some, I use Rapid Tap. Probably any oil does the trick, but this is specially designed cutting fluid, so I find it works pretty well. Just going to soak the felt pad in that, and we're going to do two wheels today. This is a centre wheel from a clock. We've got a short pivot right up against the wheel in the back, and then we've got a much larger pivot with an elongated front on it. Just show you how well this works. Got my digital gauge here. So that's a 1.57, 1.58 pivot. Normally to figure out whether I want to polish it or not, I'll just give it the thumb test. If I can feel any ridges with my thumbnail, then it's worth polishing. This one's actually pretty good, but I wanted to demonstrate this wheel, so we're going to polish it anyway. So as I said, 1.57. We're going to, I could do the 1.6, but I tend to get a little bit of wobble, so I'm going to go 1.5. I'm going to drop the pivot into the jacko, and then I've backed this out so it's free spinning. Full spring tension is bringing that wheel to play on the pivot. So then I've got the slide, and I've got this loop to hold with my finger. So I hold it with thumb and third finger and index finger on the slide. There's a little V, there's a notch in there, so it centers that perfectly. That oil pad is oiled, that's right, and we're got the on switch over here. So I'm going to give it a burst, and I can feel it and I can hear it cutting. So what I'm going to do now, back this around, I'm going to just take a bit of that spring tension off, just a tiny bit, and the sound's changed, and you'll see that the drum spins a bit more freely as it's spinning down, so that should give us a pretty good polish. Cloth's a bit funny, I'll do it on my finger. There we go. Right, let's see how close we can get into there. Can we get a good close up on that pivot?
Let's give it a go. Whoops.
Yeah, it's got a nice polished, burnished finish on it, and that's what we're looking for in any pivot that's going to go back into a clock. If it's not smooth, it's just going to cause the bush to wear again. Alright, let's have a look at the front end. This is a much bigger one, and that's 3.27. So I'll spin this around, and probably got to go fractionally oversized on this 3.3. Screw that out of the way. Now what I'm probably going to find, if I, with a big pivot, a lot more spring tension, if I back that out all the way, I'm going to, just a little bit of, might overwhelm, the belt might slip. A little bit of an old belt in this one, it's got a bit loose. So I'm just going to put a little bit of tension on it, bring the slide down, and we're polishing. Now you can actually see, being slightly oversized, that pivot's just wobbling a little bit. Doesn't really matter. Now that was cutting fairly easily, so I'm just going to take the spring tension off now. Yeah, and we got a lot more tension, a lot more metal removing going on. So let's just take that out. Now the beauty of this machine over certain lathe mounted options is that you can do a very, very long arbor with a pivot mounted halfway up without any trouble at all. So if we get a close look at there, Bronte, you can see the polished section on there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it back in the machine, and I'm going to show you the different spring tensions. So back that out to the lowest setting, bring the slide down, that's total tension off there. So that's spring tension only. Now I'm going to, we had it in the middle setting, now I'm going to go up to the full spring tension setting. This is a big pivot and it might jam the machine, we'll see. Nope, we're cutting. Probably find on a badly worn pivot with that much tension it might actually lock. The motor in this isn't hugely powerful, which is probably a good thing because it means you're less likely to do something silly and hurt yourself with that spinning. Okay, so that pivot's nicely polished. That wheel is now finished. Let's try a different wheel. This is a warning wheel. I'm going to chime or strike train, one or other. Strike. Just testing the pivot there. Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not great, so for the purposes of this demonstration we're going to polish it. The old style of the lathe mounted using a burnisher is a bit of a sod hitting your knuckles or the burnisher on these pins with these spinning. That issue's completely gone, so that's a 0.70 pivot. We're going to go back to metal spring tension, take the J-code drum back to 7. I'm going to put a bit more cutting fluid on the pad. Okay, so that's self-centering. Bring that down, perfectly straight. Just put a lid. You're going to be a bit careful how hard you go at these, especially with the coarse wheel mounted, because especially if the pivot's a bit soft, you can cut half of it away quite quickly. Okay, so let's just keep that focused against my finger. You should be able to see there's a nice polish on that pivot now. Okay, I'll do the other end for the sake of it, so you can see how fast we can do an entire wheel. And that is done. You can see the swarf on my finger. That's metal that's come off there. Pivot's beautifully polished. That wheel's done. So, it's a good tool. I had a look on YouTube the other day and I could see a couple of very quick tips that didn't really explain, videos, which didn't really explain much about the tool. So, if you are interested, if you're in Australasia, contact me. If you're in other parts of the world, Google. You should be able to find a vendor. Cheers.